Good afternoon, and welcome to Saturday Sesh. My name is Trey Reckling, the founder and director of Academy of Cannabis Science. And Saturday Sesh is what we do once a month, typically the first Saturday of each month, where we invite professionals from the industry to come in and talk to you about what they're passionate about and why we should share that passion. And so this is something we've been doing, for over 5 years, and it's been a fantastic experience. So somebody mentioned just a little bit ago pre-show, and they're like, we're glad we get to keep coming back even though our coursework is done. Y'all have an open invitation, whether you've been a student or you're thinking about being a student or you're just a fan of the herb and its benefits. We hope that you'll always join us and bring a friend. I am very fortunate today to be joined by a friend and somebody who's just been contributing fantastic amounts to this industry, and that's Farmer Tom Lauerman. Farmer Tom, and just a brief bio, because the bio is dense. He's had a lot going on. He epitomizes sustainable agriculture. He blends decades of experience with education, landscape, where he got some of his start, and organic principles. He has become a leading authority in organic cultivation, particularly in medical cannabis and hemp, where he's doing a lot of work, not just on his farm, but helping a lot of other farmers well outside of his area. He's recognized as an industry icon by CNBC, MJ Headline News. His influence extends from media, entertainment. He's done collaborations with CBD designs and even Marvel Comics that we're going to talk about, and has had a pivotal role working with the federal government as they try to untangle all the legal mess that they've created and try to help them to understand how we could move forward in a safe, effective, and way that serves our entire community. So through initiatives like the Hemp Farming Academy and speaking engagements at events worldwide, he continues to champion organic methods and visionary leadership, shaping the future of our cannabis and hemp industries. Welcome, Farmer Tom. How you doing?
Doing great, Trey. Thanks for having me.
Yo, it's great to have you. You're one of the, as I was mentioned to you before, your farm was the first cannabis farm I ever visited, and likewise was the first outdoor farm I visited, and was just fascinated by your connection to what you're doing, your love for what you're doing, and the whole normalization of it. Just reminding us that, hey, yes, there's cannabis and there's tomatoes and there's eggplant and everything else that we grow, because Farmer Tom is not just a cannabis farmer, but he's also a food farmer with a lot of love for sustainable practices and putting power and good food into the hands of folks. So Tom, do you mind talking to us a little bit? How'd you get started on all this?
Well, it was a long time ago. I got started when I was in my youth. I found cannabis, and it really seemed to help me get through my day. I was doing landscape at the time, and started growing like when I was about 13 years old. We had the compost and the soil and the seeds, and the Mexican was coming across the border, and we were using those as our genetics at the time, and that kind of all evolved into, let's roll that up to like the 90s, when Proposition 215 came into existence in California. We fought to change the laws and to educate people that, hey, this isn't like alcohol or methamphetamine or fentanyl or all these other type of serious drugs, that this has medicinal purposes and that it should be legalized, that people shouldn't be going to jail for a plant. So as part of the what we called ourselves back then was uh, Shelter from the Storm was the name of our first collective. It was the first collective in San Diego. And we had 20 patients. And during the early days of Proposition 215 in California, the police were busting anybody. So a senior citizen would call in. They voted for the law passed, and they would call the sheriff's department and say, hey, look, we're growing a few plants, and then the sheriff's department would come in and arrest you. So this was happening all over the place. So we formed Shelter from the Storm to bring in patients and have them have a safe place to get their medicine from. and I was the lead grower there. And we would grow the plants out, dry them. You bought a light that was kind of your entrance into the group, and then we paid $50 a month, and you got to take what you needed. So we would hang the plants, and we would talk a little bit about the strains and the varieties and what the medical benefits were, and the patients were able to take what they needed. They had baggies and Sharpies, and they could take what they needed for the week and then come back the next week. So that worked out very well until we got raided in 99, where I was arrested for 448 plants along with Steve McWilliams. Was We were very active in San Diego. We would go to the town council meetings and bring our 4-inch potted plants and tell the city council how safe cannabis was, as they rolled their eyes and hemmed and hawed. But somebody had to be out in front, and we were out in front in the San Diego area. We got raided on July 6th of 1999, where they showed up to our farm, and to our grow facility, which is in Hillcrest in San Diego. So we were like right in the middle of it. And when that happened and they started raiding us, we all had we were taking Brownie Mary's advice and how she kind of led the way for using the media. So we all had media lists back then, and any one of us who got busted, media was a hot topic, and the news wanted to do stories on cannabis and legalization back then. And so my wife, she called, texted all the media, and they showed up right away and kind of saved us. The more you're out there, the less the less they're gonna go aggressively after you. So we went to jail, and then we went back to the town council meeting again, where our friend Michael Bartelmo was a quadriplegic, whirled up to the stand. Mayor couldn't come out of her office. She was horrified that her police department had raided us, and they gave us back our growing equipment. And then eventually they didn't drop the charges. They just didn't prosecute us at the time. They're waiting for us to make another mistake. So after that happened, we got our grow equipment back, and I built a grow room in Michael's one bedroom apartment in Hillcrest. And we called the chief of police, and he said, "Don't worry, Michael, we're not gonna raid you." And other growers throughout the county donated a bunch of plants, and we had a good crop. So from there, we moved out of San Diego in 2001, like August of 2001, and we moved to Williams, Oregon. So Williams, Oregon is kind of like the Garberville of Humboldt of Oregon. And we lived there for a couple of years. I was a manager on the organic seed farm. We grew some plants there, and then we moved to Washington, where we bought our farm here 20 years ago, just 2 days ago. '04 of '04 of '04, we purchased our farm here in Brushbury, Washington, which is right outside of Vancouver, which is in the Portland metropolitan area. And yeah, we've been here ever since. We bought an old nursery, had 70,000 landscape plants, but the benefits, we had 5 100-foot greenhouses, irrigations, 2 wells. It was like my dream, what I've been visualizing, that I was looking for quite some time. And we just stumbled upon it, and we signed the papers that day. And like I said, we've been here 20 years. Then we grew for a couple of patients up here through that time. And then we started doing the medical marijuana farmers markets in Washington. And I co-wrote a book called The Cannabis Consumer's Guide, which got me into the farmers markets, and to start educating people on cannabis and how safe it was, and how we really needed to grow our own cannabis and grow our own food and kind of take control of our lives. So, from there, uh, Washington State legalized cannabis, and they were trying to make up their minds about concentrates at the time. And I was working with Como News. I'd done a bunch of news pieces throughout the legalization process with Como News and Matt Markovich there. And he asked me about concentrates and if I would be open to doing an open blast. Well, what an open blast is you take a glass tube and you put a coffee filter on the end and you take some butane, liquid butane, and you it goes through the cannabis product and pulls out all of the cannabinoids and trichomes, and it goes into a Pyrex bowl. Well, it's very dangerous to do that way because the gases pool up on the ground, next to the ground. And so if you plug in electrical socket and you get a spark, you can have an explosion, or a pilot light for your hot water heater or the oven or whatever. And we were, as you remember, Trey, we were having all these explosions around. And when he asked me to do this, I knew that it was legislative season because I was very active in Washington State with the legislator in the early days too, making sure they made sensible laws. And what happened was he asked me to do the open blast. I said, sure. But I was forward thinking and I thought, man, how can I really educate the lawmakers on how to proceed properly? Because education is the key to everything. You know, lawmakers, they know nothing about cannabis. They know nothing. All they knew is it was BHO and people were blowing up and people were getting injured and there was all these negative effects that was happening through them. So I told him yes, but I would like to do a 3-hour symposium for Como News to educate everybody on concentrates, because concentrates just isn't BHO. It is, you know, solventless, bubble hash, CO2. There's all these different types of ways to create, you know, concentrates. And then if they didn't do it, they were going to have more explosions because the glass tube, the coffee filter, the tie wrap, you know, that's $100. So they were going to, it's so popular that they were going to continue to have these issues. So 2 weeks later, they all changed their minds at the state level. And now we had concentrates. And you know, what happens in Washington kind of happens across the country. Washington's still the model that everybody looks to duplicate as far as successful um, regulated cannabis goes. So I was really proud of that. And that opened up a bunch of doors where I got invited to work with the CDC, the Department of Health and Human Services, CDC, NIOSH scientists. Now, the NIOSH scientists, they write the studies, the scientific studies, and then OSHA takes those studies and creates the laws, OSHA laws out of them. So in 2015, in early June, I got on the phone with 10 agents from the CDC, and we started talking about working on this health hazard evaluation. And it was the first health hazard evaluation that happened with farmers, and you know, they were trying to figure out how it first came up. Was in Colorado, the police officers union were concerned that they were going into these large indoor operations and there was all this mold, so they were really concerned about that. So Obama was in office at that time, and he authorized funds to do the studies, and so the money was there, and they got in touch with me through the union because they thought that we were the perfect place to start. Just like you saw when you came to my farm, it's pretty normalized around our farm. We have our little bit of cannabis and we grow vegetables and we, you know, we take control of our health. And they thought it was the perfect place to start. So when I was on the phone with these agents, I was asking them, so where do you get your information? And they told me, oh, we're getting it off YouTube. And I said, well, that's really not fair to our industry. How would you guys feel about doing a tour of different facilities in the Pacific Northwest that I can arrange through my friends we can really educate you before you come in and do the study. We want you to learn about the culture and about cannabis consumers and, you know, how we do things on these small farms. And they said, wow, would you do that? And I said, sure. So I arranged it. And then they're, you know, the DOJ and lawyers got involved, and they said, well, we can't go to all these, could be construed as illegal operations, but we can come to your farm and make your farm a secure location where federal agents can learn, touch, and study cannabis. And they said, are you okay with that? I said, yeah, of course. You know, we're an open book here. We've always played by the rules. He said, we're going to have to do the big background, you know, check on you. And I said, dig in deep, because, you know, me and my wife have always played by the rules that were given us. So, you know, we had medical cannabis back then in Washington State, and we were segueing into the regulated market. So they came in August to the farm for the 2-day education, and I brought in all the top people in the industry to, you know, from labs that did testing to concentrate manufacturing to trimming, you know. And then I gave them a tour of my farm where we had 2 collective gardens at the time. I think we had about 100 plants, and I walked them through them, showed them all the organic methods that I was using, and that we don't use pesticides or chemicals, that we use all these organic inputs, and we're a sustainable farm. And also took them out to my field and showed them my vegetables, my tomatoes and carrots and salad mixes and all the stuff that we grow here, because we want to take control of our health. Because as we've seen, once big corporations get a hold of any small company, they destroy the product. You know, you end up with all these additives that generally haven't been tested thoroughly enough and are bad for your health. You know, and you know, I could talk about, you know, high fructose corn syrup and all the rest of it. But we'll stay on topic here. We had them here for the 2 days. We educated them. Not only do we educate them, but we wanted to show them the lifestyle. So we smoked all day around them every day that they were there. We rolled joints in front of them. We did dabs in front of them. And we wanted to break the stigma of cannabis users. So and I had the opportunity to do this, so I did it, which I felt would put the best foot forward. So if you would have put some regulated cannabis grower or something in this situation, they wouldn't give them that full of a broad spectrum. And they called their visit and working with us novel. So it was the first time they've ever done this. So I really wanted to peel off show them, you know, so here's who we are. We can communicate, we can put sentences together, we can educate you. And they would go to dinner with us, we would have beers and pizza, and I would go outside and smoke and come back in, just living the regular lifestyle here, just so they would get the education. And so that was over, and then they came for the actual HHE during harvest. So I had to have dry product ready to be trimmed. I had to have a product that was freshly harvested that needed to be bucked. And so I had it all set up. They came in like the 3rd week in October of 2015, and they spent 3 days here. One day was harvesting, the next day was bucking, and the 3rd day was trimming. And they had us hooked up with sniffers to pick up any kinds of molds or botrytis, or, you know, and they did a lot of swabbing. So they would collect the data and the samples, and then they would put them in coolers, and then they would overnight them to their lab. And so we did this for 3 days. They had us hooked up to a glove, a cyber glove that tracked repetitive motion. And the work that they did here on our farm in that realm, the CDC put out a warning to cannabis trimmers that it could cause carpal tunnel. So and then there was a big fight because that was 2015. 2016 is an election year. The the Democrats didn't want to look like they were pro cannabis at the time for fear of losing votes. So the first time it went through, it went up on the website for a couple hours, and some high up official saw it and they took it right down. And then, so when Trump came into office, they had a stack of these HHEs, and I think that mine was buried in the middle, and they weren't even looking at them. They signed them in, signed them all off, and the next morning, AM special delivery at my door at 7 o'clock in the morning was this big stack of the reports. Because once they get it out and it's been published and it's in the public's hands, they can't backtrack on it. So that was in 2017. So it took a couple years to, you know, get the ball rolling and get the information out there. And so I've been at this for a long time. That's kind of how I got my start. You know, right now we have a school called Hemp Farming Academy. We're the first online hemp farming school. I work around the world. Currently, I'm working in South Africa with a medical doctor, with and her sister's a pharmacist there, and they eventually want to make products there. So the doctor's doing the growing, and eventually the sister will be doing the processing there in South Africa. And we've led them to, it's getting towards harvest season, and we've led them to a successful grow while most of the other farmers around there failed. It's kind of a difficult area to grow in down there, being in a desert type situation. Plus, you have monkeys and giraffes and rhinoceroses and all these wild game animals that can come in and tear up the farms also. So that's been quite the experience, and I'm still working on that right now.
Yeah, we don't have many giraffes around here tearing shit up.
No.
Well, it's fascinating, Tom, and I really appreciate you kind of illustrating that journey for us. Um, for one, to be kind of the first certified, recognized organic cannabis farmer is a huge deal. You know, to just show that it can be done, it is real, it is sustainable, and then to move from there to worker safety issues. I just really applaud you because you're obviously not just farming, but you're professing, you're being a professor and educator all throughout obviously your journey as well. The what are some practices you've learned to put in place for the safety of yourself and other folks working on the farm?
Well, you know, I've worked with, one of the things I've done recently is Leafly got in touch with me last year. We had a death, Lorna McMurray, at a processing facility in Boston. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I was asked to be on a couple of podcasts, and then Leafly got in touch with me. And for me, I would rather make a difference than make money. I would rather benefit and leave a legacy, a true legacy, as opposed to making a lot of money. It really hasn't been about making money. It's been about patience and patient care and education and showing people how to do things the right way. And so that resulted in Leafly putting out a page, a workplace health and a cannabis workers workplace health and safety page, where I invited my friends at the CDC. Those guys have become my personal friends, the top scientists there, and we communicate on the regular. He just recently wrote me a personal and professional reference, and we put this page together, and I invited him to participate. So basically, he's put a halt to the multi-state operators who kind of produce recklessly out there and don't give their, it's all about money and profits for them. Just like I said earlier, once you bring in these corporations, they take what we originally built as, we're taking care of patients, we're taking care of our own health, we want to consume the best, to a money making operation, and thus they don't treat their employees very well. Like every cannabis operator out there, they want to make money, and they know there's an endless supply of young people who just want to get into the cannabis industry. They're not going to say a lot of words about what's going on, but James got on there and he's put out there that here's my phone number, here's my email address. If three or more employees find that they're working in a dangerous situation, they can get in touch with me and we'll start an investigation. So I'm not going to name any names about the big
Mhm.
multi-state operators out there, but they started off with two with the death, and now they have double digits of
Mhm.
complaints. And I keep on seeing out there that they're always saying, "Oh, there is no standards, there is no standards," but there are standards that have been established, and we need to, you know, protect the workers out there from greedy people who just concerned about money and being on the stock exchange and making all this money and making all these huge moves. So oh,
Absolutely.
the person died out there. Lorna died in a what she was doing pre rolls. So if anybody's familiar when you're making pre rolls, the majority of them are done by cones. So there's these cones, these paper cones, and you have to stuff them. So this product needs to be super dry, and then it has to be super fine so it fills up the cones properly. So that creates dust in the air. So you get a dry product, you create all these dusts. They weren't giving her any PPE at the time, no mask, no protection, no nothing. And she had asthmatic problems as it was, but the inhalation of it caused her to have be asphyxiated and have a heart attack and die. And it was swept up underneath the rug like money has a lot of power out there.
Mhm.
Sweep it underneath the rug. But there was some advocates in Massachusetts who invited me on the show, where I got to educate them on what was going on. That led to the Leafly article. So those are things that I've been really concerned about, and I've been working on. And as far as like being on the farm, on different farms and working protection wise, we just want to make sure people are doing things safely, not too much bending over like in indoor operations. We like to grow on tables and trays that are
Mhm.
adjustable for height, so people aren't stooping over and bending. In operations for trimmers and stuff, the conclusion they came up with in the hazard evaluation was we need to rotate these workers around.
Mhm.
They can't just sit in there and trim all day, or they can't sit in a cubicle and make pre rolls all the day. You got to rotate these people around so they're not doing the same thing over and over and over again. This is where injuries happen, and they've been happening for years in all kinds of other industries.
And I want to recognize, me asking the question, it assumes, and I kind of look past the primary thing that you do to not expose yourself and others to risks is not using dangerous chemicals, right? And that's the nature of being an organic farmer, is not, making sure crap like Roundup doesn't touch your fingers or the plant or the soil. And so want to recognize that first big one that you participate in every day. Um, you've been, if anybody has been part of this industry in Washington State and beyond, they've probably seen you because Farmer Tom shows up. And that's the other thing, Tom, is I know life on the farm is a busy constant. You can't go away and have somebody come in and babysit if they don't know what they're doing. And so I know that really ties you to the work, but you continue to show up at Hemp Fest, at Canacons, at other opportunities to educate, and your approach to educate has been really creative, including a collaboration with Marvel to create some action cards. Tell us about the collaboration with Marvel, if you don't mind, or a Marvel
Yeah,
artist.
well, we made such a big splash in the early days of the cannabis industry. Like I was on NBC News, and I've been in over 36 different publications, either written, videos, all different types of things. And that came up with George Leone, who was the artist for Marvel Comics approached me and said he wanted to do a free line of cannabis trading cards for me, and if I was interested, and I said, sure, that sounds great. And so we did a bunch of, I think we did over a dozen different types of cards. And I've also back in I think 2012 or 2013, I was approached from a guy from Nike, who was a brand builder in Nike, and he asked me if I wanted to be the first one to put his name and my name and likeness on a cannabis product, and I said, of course. And he did the first Farmer Tom branded material, and we've had several iterations over the years, and so we well branded ourselves also, and but we knew the industry was going to, we heard, Trey, me and you, all day long, it's going to be a race to the bottom, race to the bottom, you know from Dr. Dominic Corva to Jim McRae to all these well-educated people kept on telling me, like, don't get in too soon,
Mhm.
and we had several offers and turned down a lot of offers, and thanks to lawyers like Aaron Pelly, who wanted to protect me and my family, we turned down a bunch of these big offers because they would own my name and my likeness, and then I would virtually just be their slave. And then I would have to talk about their talking points, and I wouldn't be able to come on this show and freely discuss what's really going on. They kind of put golden handcuffs on you,
Mhm.
to be quiet. But I've been so outspoken and really just driven out there trying to normalize cannabis and make sure everybody knows what's really going on, as opposed to what they pretend is going on.
And we know it's a lot of up and downs in this industry, and so those of you who are new, just anticipate it won't be boring, and every day is bring something new, but your ability to stay steadfast, committed to the craft, committed to be passionate is all integral to your work. So we just always encourage our students to, one, hope that your approach reflects the energy and the spirit of the plant, and anybody you choose to work with, like Tom you see here today, um, make sure they reflect the spirit of the plant, because as Tom, you're talking about big business coming in, it can really strip that away, and we see groups like MedMen, and I will call them out, who are just here for the green wave. Well, sometimes they're also a flash in the pan. They're ceasing to exist in California now, and they were going to rule the world at one point. So a lot of people have good stories, but dig beneath the good story a little bit. Make sure you got good folks you're working with. And speaking of good folks, I want to turn to some of you all, because I've been asking all the questions. Do you all have questions? Because I always have more, but I want to give some space. Anybody who's got something on their mind.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know we talk about, well, I'll just ask the question, organic. Are there organic farmers in every state? Should we, as it turns to big business and as we're now going to dispensaries instead of caregivers, should we look for the organic farmers? Should we try to stay away from certain big business distributors as we try to smoke healthfully? As we try to
Yeah,
smoke.
what I would suggest is, ask your bud tender, who are the organic producers that you supply here in your store, and ask for it. We want to have clean cannabis, and I would stay away from the big multi-state operators, and I would stay away from celebrity brands, because those celebrity brands are brought in by big state operators to increase their business. So those are the two things that I would do. Like, talk to your bud tender, stay away from the big MSOs, the multi-state operators, the big brands that you see on the news, and then yeah, just protect yourself and stay away from the celebrity brands, because they're just getting paid, and they're just like they just want money too. So if it needs to be a grower's passion to grow clean organic product out there, to take care of usually those people aren't making it too long in the industry, because it all comes down to um, to price and quality, and the THC numbers, which can be fudged with. It's all pay to play out there. Even with a lot of the labs out there, you can pay for the super high THC numbers. And I wouldn't go by the high THC numbers. I'd rather focus on the terpene levels as opposed to the high THC numbers. Like the our go-to medicines here on the farm are 18 to 21% THC, but high in terpenes and high in flavonoids. And look for the varieties that work for you, and then try to stay with the one farm who's producing them. And then if you ask the bud tenders, hey, where's this variety? Where's that variety? This one works for me. I like it from this. They'll get the word back to the producer, and then they'll be have more incentive to grow those varieties to you. And all these different varieties, they've kind of lost their medicinal benefits. A lot of them have, just because they're growing for different reasons and some nefarious reasons too. Like a lot of these places, they want it to be like crack cocaine. Like you take a hit, and 10 minutes later you want to take another one, and 10 minutes later you want to take another one, as opposed to the older varieties that you smoke it, and 3 4 hours later you're doing good, and then maybe you need a little bit more at that point. And so they're all money driven. So stick with the old strains. Blue Dream's a great one for people who want to come home after a busy day at work, take smoke a little to relax in their evening, have a good sleep, and then get up the next morning feeling great. Blue Dream is a great strain. It's an old strain. It's easy to grow. So if any people are interested in growing out there, growing your own, if you can find some Blue Dream clones, I would suggest starting off with clone growing too, as opposed to just start jumping into seed growing. Clones are a little bit are better, and you kind of know what you're getting. You're going to get a female plant. And a lot of when you're growing from seeds that aren't feminized, and I'm not a big feminized fan, because I think during the feminization process, it messes with it messes with the the parts of the plant while growing. I think it messes with the different DNA of the plants. So yeah, just ask your bud tender, what the varieties are, who grows the best organic cannabis. And the more people ask, it's all about demand. So the more you ask, the more that type of product will be out there.
And I'm glad you said that, Tom. We're always trying to encourage folks to do that, because we know, the cannabis naive person or somebody who's not doing a lot of research will go in and just search for, hey, what's the highest THC you got in the shop? Well, you wouldn't buy alcohol like that. Obviously, cannabis is not alcohol, but it's a flawed method of shopping. It's a flawed method of valuing things. We know that in nature, there was not, cannabis wasn't showing up at 25, 27% THC. That's not what nature was doing. So if you trust some whiz kid chemist or somebody who's been growing for 4 or 5 years to know better than millions of years of nature, that's on you. Me, I'm gonna go with something closer to what nature provides. And so thanks for putting in those plugs, and definitely do some research online. See what that brand values. Right. I'm also not looking forward to the Nabisco of weeds, or of cannabis it's likely around the corner, and hope that we will always have a robust craft cannabis section, right? Because that's where we're going to maintain genetics. That's where we're going to maintain quality. Um, Everything else. Madison, what's up?
Yeah, so I won't like say where I work, but I do work for an MSO, and I didn't realize at first that that's what they were, just because I didn't know anything about any of the brands or companies. But I quickly saw that they do not align with the message that they say that they have, and they don't treat the employees at all how they should be treated. And it's so I guess my question is both like how they treat their employees, the product they're putting out, just everything they're doing. Is there anything we can do Like, is there anything we can do at all to combat that or to get them out of the way? Like, because they're big, and they're money hungry. Like, they've got the cash. Like, what can we do?
Great question.
It's all about education, and it's all about talking to the bud tenders, and it's all about getting the word out there. That it's not all about money. We're kind of trapped in here in the United States and around the world where everything's about making money. You're successful if you make a lot of money. You're not successful if you grow clean, healthy products, and they kind of make sure of that. And these people are celebrated, which they shouldn't really be celebrated. And if you and your employees are being mistreated in any way, I would go to Leafly, look up the cannabis workers resource page, and start digging in there. And if they're not abiding by the laws and not treating you good, you can make complaints, and they can't fire you at that point. They get serious trouble if they're if they're doing these bad tactics and bad work ethics and bad workplace.
And Madison, you can take your skills too and make sure, as you're looking for your next job, you know, you'll know that much more, right? You'll know the questions to ask. Um, you'll know a little bit more because like Tom said, you're not alone. There are a lot of people who just want to get into this industry and are happy for an opportunity. But I know, we know a lot of these businesses can be male dominated. Bunch of white folks that of a certain age that are also not representing their clientele. If I go into one more retail shop and everybody's 22 years old, I'm like, come on, y'all. Come on, we got people of all ages, of all races, of all backgrounds, of all religions, of all countries of origin that love this plant. So that's what I expect your staff should look like. A little bit of everything. And so now Madison, but take you're learning on the job, and you're going to be a better employee. You're going to be a wiser person. Sorry you're having those challenges though, but you're not alone for sure. Anybody else? Questions for Farmer Tom? Wendy.
Okay. Just any insights from Farmer Tom about cannabis and cancer and any things that work, things that you may have heard.
So talking medicinal value, Tom, I know that's something you really appreciate. I know you've talked about myrcene levels and particular strains or cultivars. Are there any cultivars that you really appreciate, or some regulars that you just keep in rotation for that reason?
Well, we really enjoy Amnesia Haze here on our farm. It's a very good, reliable old strain that has a lot of medicinal benefits. We do a Godbud cross with Nepalese Purple Kush. That's another one of our favorites here on the farm. And I get lots of seeds from people. And basically those are what we grow here for our medicinal purposes. As far as cancer goes, you really just need to you really need to get out there and use it. It's definitely going to help. We know it helps topically on different types of melanoma and those things. We know but the studies aren't really there for healing. And we've seen a lot of healing. We've seen a lot of great results out there. So what I would do is just go back to those older strains and utilize those, and then utilize the concentrates, especially if you're going through severe things. But be wary of you have to mix it up. You have to consume in a few different ways. What we've seen over the years, and it's not a very popular deal, is that RSO, Rick Simpson's oil, or is it hurts people's livers after a long time of use, because our livers are basically a filter. And if you're using it RSO too much, it can get clogged up in your liver. And we've seen time after time again, it's not really talked about that much, that long-term users end up having liver issues. So be careful with the RSO out there. We know it's really helpful, but like everything in moderation, and do different types of consume different types of cannabis in different ways for your medical needs. And it's not only cannabis. You really have to change your lifestyle as far as eating too. Eat clean, or buy food from your neighbor, or if you can afford it, buy the cleanest food as possible that you can get, and take away the sugars. We know that sugars cause cancer, and that's a big deal. So it's not just a cannabis is gonna heal everything. It's more that change your whole lifestyle and use cannabis, and you can have different results, and it can help your health.
Thank you very much. And although you're not making a commercial pitch, I want to make a commercial pitch for you, Tom, and I encourage you all to go and check out Farmer Tom Organics. I just put the link in the chat, because not only is Tom involved in growing food and growing cannabis, but you also got rolling papers and cones that you have branded, and specific ingredients, safety guidelines towards that production, right?
Yeah, yeah, we tested many different papers out there, and we found the best ones out there. And we carry rolling papers, and yeah, everybody really likes them. You can go to my school, Hemp Farming Academy, too, if you're interested in learning about growing. Now you could take these same methods that we use for hemp and incorporate them into your regular growing. It gives you step by step instructions on how to grow outdoors, because basically we're about the full sun grown cannabis. We think that's the best. We tell you how to take care of your plants, nurture them, those type of things also.
Man, thank you so much for what you do, for the time you spend, not just on your farm, but for the benefit of other folks. And it's evident in hearing from you the passion that you have about the work you do. So much love, much appreciation, much good fortune on your future of everything you do. We hope that you all will not just go to the site, but follow Farmer Tom Organics on social media. So if you want to get a sense of what these plants look like, Tom downplayed it. He says, we got a few cannabis plants here. We're talking huge, like 100-gallon root ball containers, if that's appropriate, Tom, or if that's accurate. I mean, we're talking plants much taller than anybody here in the room, and they're trees of plants, and
Yeah,
then
there's a
huge
lot of
farms.
there's a lot of documentation. We've grown 58,000 plants. I'm growing 40,000 plants in South Africa right now. All the way down to our little 4-plant medical grow. Of course, our plants are huge, but we teach you all about those things. So, and thanks for having me on, Trey. It's been a pleasure to educate your community on cannabis. And you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Farmer Tom Lauerman on Instagram, Facebook, you name it, X, all of them. I'm out there and I post regularly. I'm slowed down a little bit now, but it's our spring season and we're really busy on the farm prepping for our season out here.
Thank you so much for your time. You all have another friend in your Canna fam now, and your Rolodex of professionals you know in the industry. Tom, thanks for spending time with us. Thank you all for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. And you'll be able to find this content on YouTube, along with dozens of hours of other content that's free and available on our YouTube channel. So look for this within a couple weeks. And thank you all for joining us. Thanks again, Tom.
Thanks, Trey.
Have a good Saturday afternoon, you all.
Thank you. You too.